Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the True Strength Life podcast. This is always a fun episode to make. This is my year-end top list. So a few things that are my favorite things from 2025, and so I will have, as you guys may know up to this point, I really only listen to Christian hip hop mostly in terms of music. That and Frank Sinatra. So I will list my top Christian hip hop albums of the year. I'll give my favorite couple songs, favorite artists of the year. Then I will list my top 5 books from this year and my top 5 podcasts from this year. So this is really just my recommendations, my suggestions for you guys to check out. These are just things that I've enjoyed. Before we jump into all that, let's mention, I did this last episode. I do not have my new book on me to show you, to bring up, because that would be great for the video. But search Rooted and Rising by Aaron Simpkins on Amazon for my latest book. There's my other book, ABC Primer by Aaron Simpkins on Amazon. Check that out. Check out one of my best friend's brands. He makes the best clear protein on the market, Quench Protein. So go to sciencesups.com. Use True Strength at checkout for 15% off of that. And let's jump into this. As always, all that will be in the show notes. My list that I'm going to name out will also be on the show notes. And I have some other links and all for you to check out. So what I'm going to mention real quick before I get into those couple lists that I mentioned, that I could think of, I came up with my top 3, my top 3 things that happened this year that were life changes for me. I think that were positive. So number one, I started tracking my calories and macros. I fell off of that for the end of the year, Christmas time and all that. I have put on a few pounds because of that. But for most of this year, I have been doing, for the very first time, actually keeping track of my macros, keeping track of what I eat every day. Have a goal set for the day for your protein, fats, and carbs, and goal, calories. But when you plug in your macros, your calories automatically happen. So for that, I use Simple Stupid Macros, the app. That's just what I use. I know other people recommend, other ones. So yeah, that's been really good. I through that, I've lost about 30 pounds, and I've been able to keep it off. And also, and with that, my exercising this year has not been good at all. It's been very inconsistent, wishy-washy. But I have been consistent and pretty good with the food part. And for me, that's always been my struggle and the hard part for me. So I have been able to get off that weight and also keep it off. But I have more weight I want to get off. But a lot of that's going to come with, I need to get consistent with working out. And I need to, jump back on, the eating right, eating good, tracking my numbers. But I am going to do that. And so that is a big positive change I've made. 2, you're not ready for this one. This is gonna shock some people, but this is also one of those extra links I'm gonna provide for you in the show notes. I started to use this year. I think back in May, I started to use nicotine and nicotine pouches. That's what I just held up. Nicotine pouch, nicotine pouches, nicotine patches. I don't always use both. Sometimes I use both. Sometimes I use just one, depending on the day or whatever, or the situation. And some people initially, that's going to freak you out. Why would he do that? I'm not somebody that's ever smoked. I'm not trying to quit smoking. Like I said, I've never smoked cigarettes. I mean, I'm a very occasional cigar smoker, but that's about it. So why would I jump on using nicotine? I listened to an episode on the Culture Apothecary podcast with Dr. Bryan Ardis, where he was being interviewed. And the topic that she brought on him for the show to talk about was nicotine, because he wrote a book that had to do with the with COVID, and he wrote a book. COVID. It would have been great to have the name of that book. COVID-19 lies or something. I don't know. Dr. Bryan Bryan Ardis Ardis. If you look him up, you can find his book. Well, he had a chapter in there that caught a lot of people off guard. He had a chapter in there about nicotine. He had all these chapters about this or that with the shot, and this or that with COVID and other things and all that. But then all of a sudden he has this random chapter about nicotine. So caught a lot of people off guard. Well, he brought to people's attention all this research and all that had been done on nicotine, and studies have been done on nicotine, and how effective it can be for for helping people with COVID symptoms, or long COVID symptoms, or things like that they're dealing with. So, and then just he brought up some other benefits in general that it can have in terms of like clarity, your brain, optimizing your brain function, throughout the day, and also just in general feeling better. If you have a cold, or you feel a cold coming on, using pouches, or somebody like him, he uses a 3.5 milligram patch every day of his life for the last 4 or 5 years. He used it. You can hear all this on the episode. And he makes the claim, since then he has not gotten sick. Everybody around him can be sick, he's fine. And also with this, because I know with nicotine, people are going to be worried about, well, aren't you addicted to it now? I really personally don't think that I am, because I have gone days without it, and I'm perfectly fine. There's no like withdrawal symptoms, or I know people who, most Americans are hooked on caffeine nowadays. I'm one of them. If you go a day or even hours into the day where you typically would have caffeine, but then you have a day where you don't, you start to already get those symptoms of a headache. You feel groggy, things like that. I haven't experienced any of that with nicotine, and I've gone 2 or 3 days without it. So he talks again in that episode about how he believes nicotine itself is not addictive. Hello, darling. Yes, I'm in the middle of recording again. And so you can go check out that episode. You can check out his website. He has a bunch of links to all that. His own nicotine research. Again, I'm not suggesting you do this. I'm just telling you something that I believe has been a positive for me, and I most likely will continue for the foreseeable future. Real quick, third one, I set up a studio. My dad, helped me a lot. We built this office in my basement. She's dancing in front of me. Built my office in our basement, and I set it up. The main idea was for it to be, used as the studio for the podcast, so that I had a normal, regular, consistent spot. So it has been that, and which I'm very thankful for. And it's also a great place for studying and things like that. You can't see it, but I have a lot of my books over here. It's just an organized spot for doing all this stuff, which has been great. So now to get off of that, we're going to jump into the list. I'm not going to, I know I've made these episodes long before in the past. I'm not going to do that. So I'm, like I said, I'm going to make these lists so you can read them in the show notes. Cause I know listening to people podcasts, whenever they talk about their favorite things for the year, it's always, they always mention a title of a book or a podcast or something, or they mention the name of somebody. But it's hard to look them up if they're just mentioning them. because everybody's names and titles and all, you don't know how to just spell it necessarily if you just hear somebody say it. So I'm giving you all this in the show notes so that you can just look at the show note. Oh, this is how it's spelled. This is what I'm looking up. I'm just trying to make it easy for you guys. So my top 10, this is not in order, but the other list will be in order. These are my top 10 Christian hip hop albums of 2025. Kieran by Kieran the Light. That just came out recently, but I've really, really liked it. So Kieran by Kieran the Light. Letter to the Streets by ASAP Preach. That again just came out recently. I think like these two within the past month, but I've liked them that much. Vida by Brenno. That was a really dope album. Came out a few months ago. Come and See, the Deluxe album by Torey Deshawn. Blameless by Jackie Hill Perry. Jordan on the Wizards by Jered Sanders. Reconstruction by Lecrae. Nobody's Mascot by Bizzle. Child of God 2 by Forrest Frank.
Yeah,
So,
I like it.
yeah, I know you do. Some of you are going to say, well, he's not really a rapper. Well, I'm including him in this because he's by far is the most listened to album for me this year. And he does have his sound is very influenced by hip hop. And he does rap a little bit here and there, especially on when he's featured on other people's songs. So I included that. And Godtwang 4 by Rare of Breed. I know you you do like Toby Mac. So I give you my two favorite songs from this year, which are by guys that are actually not mentioned in my top albums. Golgotha by Eluzai and Shia LaBeouf by Levi Todd. Those are my top two songs from this year. And by far my most listened to artist is
Forrest Frank.
Forrest Frank, yeah. On my Apple Music recap for the year, I actually made Forrest Frank's top 1,000 listeners for the year. Now, with a lot of help from my kids, as you can see, and my wife, because we all, as a household, we really like Forrest Frank. So Forrest Frank definitely was my top artist of the year. Now jumping into my top 5 books for the year. These are not necessarily books that came out this year, but they're just my top favorite that I finished this year. I believe I finished 20 books total, but here's my top 5. Beyond the Wager by Douglas Groothuis. I always forget how to say his name. Douglas Groothuis. He's a very good Christian apologist and writer. He has many books he's written, but this one is Beyond the Wager. It's about Blaise Pascal. And Blaise Pascal fascinated me, so that's why that made my top 5. Seeing the Supernatural by Lee Strobel. Lee Strobel is a GOAT, so, I mean, if he writes something, it's going to be really good. And Seeing the Supernatural is his case for... He has a case for miracles book, but it's his case for miracles, but also talking about demons and angels and all the spiritual realm stuff. So, making a case for it basically is his thing, but he gives the evidence to back the supernatural. And fascinating book. If you're a fan of podcasts like Blurry Creatures or Ninjas or Butterflies or Haunted Cosmos, a lot of this material in the book is going to be, you're going to recognize it. It's going to be repeat. But this is a book that reaches a broader audience than those podcasts do. So Seeing the Supernatural by Lee Strobel, my number 4 book. Number 3, Happy Lies by Melissa Dougherty. I believe this was her first book, and she came out swinging. This was a bestseller right off the bat. She's a really dope YouTuber, influencer, apologist, and this was her book on her experience with New Age and the New Age philosophy and beliefs. So Happy Lies is just her covering that, what they believe, what she used to believe, what New Ageism believes, and then exposing it for what it is, it's a lie, and giving you what the truth is. My number 2 book, Spurgeon, A Life by Alex Diprima. I was just absolutely fascinated by the life of Charles Spurgeon. I'm sure anybody listening to this, Charles Spurgeon, the Prince of Preachers, his life was insane, was incredible, and he did so much for the kingdom. He literally died at an early age, most likely due to exhaustion. But all of that is laid out in this book, and it's very well done, very well written. And like I said, just what Spurgeon did and what he accomplished, how he went about things, it just was incredible, very inspiring. So that was my number 2 book. And my number 1 is a tiny book. Again, I should have brought it out. I don't have it anywhere near me. I should have brought it. That would have been a great idea. Fearless Prayer by Craig Hazen. This came out a few years ago, but it was my first time reading it. Again, it's small. I think it's only like 100 pages, but it really did actually change my approach towards prayer, my approach and my understanding of prayer, basically from here on out. So because of that, it was very impactful. I actually have, you can't see it, but this is something it's from the book, but I hung it up on my wall next to my desk, just to not let me forget, to remind me. This is John. I'll just read what it says. We are now at a place to see how the radical promise of John 15:7. The whole book is off the premise of John 15:7. I'll read it again. We are now at a place to see how the radical promise of John 15:7 actually plays out. Here it is. So this is his final recap of John 15:7 towards the end of the book. Number 1, if you remain in me. Number 2, and my words remain in you. Number 3, and you are focused on bearing fruit for the Lord, then ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. You can ask with great certainty because the Lord himself has promised this, John 15:7. He does not lie, Hebrews 6:18. He is absolutely faithful in doing what he promises, Isaiah 55:11. So a lot of people, they misunderstand that verse. They read it as a, give God all what give him what you wish for and you'll get it. It's kind of that, but as long as you remain in him, number 1, and his words remain in you, and if those 2 things are true, then what we are asking for is focused on bearing fruit for the Lord. So if it's kingdom focused, then yes, it is a ask. God will provide. But if you're really uncomfortable with how I just explained that, I really suggest reading my number 1 book for the year, Fearless Prayer by Craig Hazen. My top 5 podcasts. Here we go, and we're gonna end out. I have to mention the Listen to God's Word podcast, because that is the number 1 that I listen to every day. It's the first one I listen to every day. It's literally just reading God's. It's an audio of just scripture read every day, and it goes through the Bible in chronological order, and you finish the entire Bible in a year. So I would listen to that every day, and so that was definitely my most listened to podcast. But because that was kind of like the everyday, and that would automatically be my number 1 every year, I made that just my honorable mention. So here's my top 5 other podcasts. Number 5, the PBD podcast. That's Patrick Bet-David. It's him and his crew. They touch on a lot of that became my main politically driven podcasts for the year. I just really like how they cover things. I really like how they're honest. Again, you're not going to, as a Christian, you're not going to agree with everything they say. A couple of those, PBD claims to be a Christian. A couple other guys claim to be Christians, but some of them are newer believers. Some of them you might disagree with some of what they say. And a couple of the guys are not believers. But I just like, I always lean towards or appreciate people who are honest, even if they're not necessarily believers. As long as they really come off as if they're being honest, I can get down with that. So the PBD podcast, I really appreciate that. That made number 5. The Deep End by Lecrae. I know I'm going to have some friends that don't like that and are going to disagree with me. That's okay. Doesn't really bother me. The Deep End by Lecrae. Again, I don't agree with everything Lecrae says. I have been listening to him for literally a couple decades now. I really appreciate his music, and I have for a long time. It's so beautiful. And I really like conversational podcasts. So he has a lot of people on where he just has a conversation with them, interviews them. So I haven't listened to every episode, but I've listened to a bunch, and I just appreciate the honest back and forth. So the Deep End by Lecrae, my number 4. Number 3, this became my weekly entertainment based podcast because they're very funny. They do talk about real stuff, but the way they go about it is very entertaining, very funny. Ninjas Are Butterflies. And they hit that like niche market where they touch on a lot of things that are not mainstream topics. But it's very funny. It is very informative, very entertaining. And they are Christians. So Ninjas Are Butterflies. I love those guys. They made my number 3. Number 2, Undaunted Life, a man's podcast with Kyle Thompson. He's very straightforward, very honest, and I love that. He's a believer, and he will not be swayed. He will be very challenging. This is a man's podcast, so he's very upfront. He's very straightforward how he talks. I appreciate that. So, and he touches on everything. An Undaunted Life, a man's podcast, made number 2. My number 1, which I just started. Well, I think it actually just started this year, but I didn't start listening to it till like 3 months ago or so. But it's blown up ever since. Live Free with Pastor Josh Howerton. That's the podcast from Lake Point Church. Live Free. It's similar to the Undaunted Life podcast, but Live Free. It's not. I guess you could say their audience is definitely more men than women, and it is all guys talking. So I could definitely see how it's more geared towards men, but they're not. Their content is for everybody, but I just love how Josh Howerton presents things, how he talks. They get so deep on scripture, but also the way they can talk about it and they can tie it into cultural things. They can tie it into he gets so excited when he learns something new in scripture and how scripture's connected, and how it's connected to historical events sometimes, things like that. And when he presents that, it's just awesome. So that became my favorite to listen to. So Live Free with Josh Howerton became my number 1 podcast for 2025. So again, there's my top list. There's my couple life changes I mentioned in the beginning that I made for this year, I believe for the positive. This was episode 150, kind of a benchmark. So again, my top list of 2025. I'm going to put them in the show notes because I know there was a lot of names, a lot of titles mentioned that are going to be confusing. You're not going to know how to spell them. I wouldn't know either unless I looked them up. So check that out in the show notes. Again, guys, I appreciate you. Comment what was your favorite. What was your favorite, whether it was Christian hip hop or not. What was your favorite artist of the year? Who'd you listen to a lot? What was your favorite album? Let me know what your favorite book was or your favorite podcast. I like to hear that feedback. So comment that on whatever platform you listen to. Please like the podcast, like the episode, subscribe. I'm trying to build this thing up. I really want to make this thing legit. So let's just keep this thing moving. I appreciate you guys for listening. And remember, truth is strength.
I still got something to say.
Go ahead. What is it?
See you next year.
See you next year.